rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The task is mighty, and so are we. The task is mighty, and so are we. The task is mighty, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The land is holy, and so are we. The land is holy, and so are we. The land is holy, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The world is ready, and so are we. The world is ready, and so are we. The world is ready, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be.
Not able to watch with us right at 4. So it should be back recording now. And this is our first week, so bear with us as we get through all of the tech stuff. If you have questions or comments, like I said, use the chat. And Marcia is our co-host for today. So if there's something isn't working or you can't hear or you have a question, you can message her directly for that. And we would love to make sure you're on our mailing list. So every Wednesday we send out an email with worship information for that coming Sunday. So I sent one to like our whole entire list this week, just so everybody knew we were going to be online for worship. So if you didn't fill out that form yet to say you want to be on that list, then I believe Marcia is going to share it in the comments here, and you can fill that out and we'll add you to that weekly email list. And what other things? Tomorrow is our new moon meditation with Valerie. So every month for the new moon, we share in a time of meditation. The new moon is technically today, I think, right? But we decided first Zoom worship and new moon might be too much in the same day. So tomorrow at 8 p.m., it's the same Zoom link for all things Church in the Wild. We're always going to use the same Zoom link. So use this link, but we can send it to you again if you need it. We had a great first Sunday saunter this week. where we meet at the Binghamton University Nature Preserve and took a great hike that Cam let us in. It was awesome. And next Sunday at noon, we're meeting again. We're going to meet every Sunday at noon at the Nature Preserve. And Binghamton Food Rescue, a representative from Binghamton Food Rescue and a representative from Sky Lake will be joining us right at noon so that we can give them a check of $500 each for their organization, as we committed to giving 10% of everything we raised last year to organizations in the community doing awesome justice work. So those were the two our board picked. We're going to be picking again for this year. So if you have a suggestion, let us know. But we're excited to give such a great amount to those two great organizations. And then we've recently updated our online giving from Tidely company to a company called Fundraiser. So for anybody who was giving automatically, set up recurring donations, you need to make the switch to this. Your donations with Tidely have been canceled, so they won't be automatically coming out until you set them up with that online giving. That's the wrong link, Marcia. That's the form link. We'll get the right link in there to set up online giving, either recurring or just make a one-time donation online at, let's see if I have it ready to go. Nope, I don't. Sorry. At the link, it's through the website too. There it is, fundraise. Yeah. So you can support everything we're doing that way. And we have half of the people who made the switch. So thank you to those who already did that. And then after our time of worship, if you want to hang out and chat and unmute yourself, we're going to have some coffee talk. And you can join us for, 5-10 minutes just to say, hey, what's up? Catch up with people if you wanted to ask somebody a question or were thinking of them. Feel free to stay and join us for that. So thanks everybody for sharing in the comments in the chat. I love seeing where everybody's at. Physically and emotionally, maybe. I don't know what the number represents, but spiritually. So we're going to jump right in here with our first reading. So allow this poem from Rilke to help you enter a space of worship. Go to the limits of your longing. God speaks to each of us as he makes us, then walks with us silently out of the night. These are the words we dimly hear. You, sent out beyond your recall, go to the limits of your longing. Embody me. Flare up like a flame and make big shadows I can move in. Let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final. Don't let yourself lose me. Nearby is the country they call life, and you will know it by its seriousness. Give me your hand.
Should old acquaintance be forgot and never take a cup of kindness yet for old lang syne. Happy New Year!
Yay. Thank you, Kristen, for recording these. And Catherine volunteered to do our wisdom reading. So here you go. Thank you, Catherine.
We're having some noise difficulties with this dog, so we'll do our best. Wisdom from the theologian Reverend Eugene Peterson. Many who have traveled the way of faith have described the transition from an infantile faith that grabs at God out of desperation to a mature faith that responds to God out of love, as content as a child that has been weaned. Often our conscious spiritual lives do begin at points of desperation, and God, of course, does not refuse to meet our needs. There are heavenly comforts that break through our despair and persuade us that all will be well and all manner of things will be well. The early stages of belief are not infrequently marked with miraculous signs and exhilarations of spirit. But as discipleship continues, the sensible comforts gradually disappear. For God does not want us neurotically dependent, but willingly trustful. And so God weans us. The period of infancy will not be sentimentally extended beyond what is necessary. The time of weaning is very often noisy and marked with misunderstandings. I no longer feel like I did when I was first a Christian. Does that mean I'm no longer a Christian? Has God abandoned me? Have I done something terribly wrong? The answer is neither. God hasn't abandoned you, and you haven't done anything wrong. You are being weaned. The apron strings have been cut. You are free to come to God or not. You are, in a sense, on your own with an open invitation to listen and receive and enjoy our Maker.
Thanks, Catherine. And through the gift of technology, we still get to hear from Rich, our wild neighbors nature connection nature guide, who's currently in the Adirondacks, which I think is where this video comes from.
Do you ever feel that so much about your situation in life is, for better or for worse, out of your control? The truth is that the landscape in life is constantly changing. The ancestors of the wildlife that calls this region home have had to respond and react to changes in the landscape that they have had no control over for the past 1.4 billion years. 1.4 billion years ago, where the current Adirondack Mountains are, was the Grenville Mountain Range, an ancient mountain range. The Adirondack Mountains are a mountain range that was molded by fire and carved by ice. 147 million years ago, the Adirondacks were uplifted into their present form due to geothermal pressures deep beneath the Earth's surface. 20,000 years ago, glaciers scoured the tops of these mountains and the entire landscape. Let's take a look at some unique adaptations that are the result of animals and plants changing form and function in response to a changing landscape. Here at this high elevation, spruce and fir trees huddle close together for support and protection from what is often a very harsh climate to live and to grow in. High alpine plants grow in mats and cushions to conserve heat and water and to avoid desiccation from the strong winds that are so common an occurrence on these rocky slopes. The truth is that in many cases, you trying to control the changes in the landscape of your life would be like a tree trying to stop the Laurentide Glacier from scouring the mountaintops, or like a pack of wolves trying to stop the Adirondack Mountains from uplifting as a result of geothermal pressure. Like our Adirondack wildlife who've been gifted with a landscape of glacier-carved mountains that they have had no control over, yet simply had to react and respond to. Each of us has been gifted with a changing landscape in our lives that we've got to react and respond to as well. The biggest mistake we can make is refusing to adapt to the changes in the landscape of life. That action would spell disaster for the fir tree who tries to grow tall and straight all by itself at 4,800 feet elevation. And it would spell disaster for you and me too. But choosing to make the best of our life's landscape and choosing to react and respond to the changes in life's landscape are the path to balance and vitality in every season. My name is Rich Hanlon, and this is me wishing you the best in every season of life. Thanks for watching.
So we have started the new year with a fun series that I am just calling Fresh Perspectives. And that just means we're going to hear for 5 weeks of January from people who aren't me. And hearing different perspectives that we have from within our community and outside of it, because technology is going to allow us to bring wonderful folks in. And we actually have Maureen with us this week, who's going to be speaking next week, which I'm thrilled about, from Ohio. But this first week, we have our own, one of our board members, Zach, has volunteered. I did not twist any arms, or maybe just slightly poked at a couple of our own, but they all willingly volunteered, and we'll be hearing from Cam in a few weeks. So I'm really looking forward to this, and it is a gift to me as I am moving this month for the second time in 6 months. So it's much appreciated to get to hear from other folks and to be able to bring in fresh perspectives. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Zach.
Okay, thanks, Corey. And I'm excited to be here, but on Zoom. So thanks. So as we know, it's January 2nd, and the holiday season is behind us. And so we've officially landed in the real part of winter, and we begin the long wait for spring. This period of waiting is a good opportunity to reflect on the concept of liminality and all the ways it appears in our lives. If you're unfamiliar with the term, liminal states are a time of transition. This idea first appeared in anthropology as a way of thinking about the middle stage of a rite of passage, where you are no longer occupying a certain status, but have yet to fully attain your post-ritual identity. And life is replete with times and phases of in-between. The early parts of our lives involve a lot of achievements and rites of passage. K-12 education, then college, maybe postgraduate work, finding a spouse, buying a house, having some children. Eventually, though, there comes a time where most of the obvious thresholds have been crossed. And then maybe other things happen. Jobs, money, or loved ones are lost. Sometimes we initiate these changes, and sometimes those changes are initiated against our will, and we're sent into darkness. These later transitions and liminal phases are not infused with the same excitement as our earlier rites of passage. Back in April of 2020, during peak pandemic freakout, one of my favorite religious thinkers, Richard Rohr, wrote this, quote, "Liminal space is an inner state and sometimes an outer situation where we can begin to think and act in new ways. It is where we are betwixt and between, having left one room or stage of life but not yet entered the next. We usually enter liminal space when our former way of being is challenged or changed. Perhaps when we lose a job or a loved one, during illness, at the birth of a child, or a major relocation. It is a graced time, but often does not feel graced in any way. In such space, we are not certain or in control." Ready or not, I think all of us experienced some major liminality when the pandemic began. 2020 was probably the hardest year of my life. I came into 2021 with a clear vision and a plan for starting over, but then most of that plan, too, vaporized. It was like all the things I could bank on were being strategically taken away, and I was really mad. I was particularly mad at God. And now I love Richard Rohr, and what he said is true, but he could have been a little less rosy about this. For most of us, liminal space just sucks. It's an awful feeling when everything that previously worked doesn't anymore, and you don't know what to do about it. So what do we do in these moments? How do we proceed when we have no answers, and our prayers seem to go to a great spam folder in the sky? The truth is, these desperate moments are a time of rebirth, a time when we are being called to stillness and waiting, and ultimately, spiritual maturity. The readings we heard today are two that really helped me. The Rilke poem comes from his Book of Hours, which is an incredible set of love poems he wrote to God. In this poem, Rilke buries us in wisdom tradition imagery. He imagines God coaching us on what to expect before sending us into life. Rilke's God tells us we will not be able to remember important truths about our connection to God and creation. In this poem, God implores us to go to the limits of our longing and to embody God and to flare up like a giant flame so that God can move in our shadows. But why? God wants us to go to the limits of our longing because we must run into these limits and hardship to learn that so much of what we want just brings us to dead ends. We need to see that our longings are empty so that we can stop being intoxicated by their images and our unconscious desires. And why would God want us to flare up like a flame so he can move in our shadows? In Jungian thought, the shadow is all the parts of ourselves that we're unaware of. I would argue that in the fiery wrecks of our greatest failures, God is there drawing our attention to the shadows that are cast by our flames. I've come to believe that in the earlier phases of life, we're driven to acquire and construct our lives like Lego pieces. We build our careers, our possessions, and our family units. There's nothing wrong with this. It is a necessary and critical step on our path to spiritual maturity. But the real work and the hardest work happens when it all breaks and we're plunged into the unknown. A funny thing happens if you sit in the liminal space for long enough. You start to ask yourself, what's so great about knowing in the first place? All my life I've known this or that, and where has it gotten me? Here, to this liminal pit. The greatest gift of not knowing what to do is the freedom to take no action. When all the obvious solutions are broken, new things call your attention. Vital things that you somehow ignored slowly come into view. Perhaps you find new creative outlets, or you uncover old feelings you've been avoiding. Eventually, you discover directions for your life that are more meaningful. All of this spiritually vital growth is born out of the uncomfortable dormancy of a liminal period. But as I said, let's not be too rosy about it. The liminal pit can be pretty lonely, and doubly so if you pair it with a spiritual crisis of feeling abandoned by God. And it's here I think Eugene Peterson offers us some wisdom. So much of contemporary spirituality, from the prosperity gospel to like New Age divine manifesting, amounts to transactional cosmic wishmaking. We want a spirituality that solves our problems and makes our dreams come true. Christianity, in particular, has been marketed as a sort of moral checklist. If you meet the criteria, you get the reward. And it feels good to believe in a God that will hold us up and take care of us, a God who will make all of our ends meet and our days purposeful. But deep down, I think we all know this is a woefully incomplete concept of God. Eugene Peterson wrote about weaning. In our early lives, where directions are clear and goals are attained, it feels like God is on our side. And yes, on a certain level, of course, God has a hand in a lot of good things. And of course, God wants what's best for us. But the question of the liminal hour is whether what's best for us is what's comfortable. And I don't think I'm tipping my hand when I say that it's usually not. And what is our response when things go to pot and God goes quiet? Well, in my experience, there is a lot of wailing and cursing. This is why Peterson's weaning metaphor is so helpful. Babies are generally accustomed to a certain lifestyle. When you make a big change, either by weaning or trying to do sleep training, it's not met with joyful or quiet acceptance. There's a lot of distress, but in the end, ideally, you have a happier and more independent baby. I don't think God would have gone to such an extensive effort to create people that rely on their creator for every little thing. As co-creators and stewards of this earth, we are needed to be robust and hardy people who can face difficulty, make hard choices, and support ourselves and others. This is very difficult to achieve if we are trapped in an infantile and narcissistic theology or personal philosophy. Unfortunately, being faithful does not exempt us from great personal suffering. And I'm not offering a cliche here by saying that God doesn't give us more than we can handle. I'm saying that the more thoughtful we are about life, the more we see limitations and disappointments around us. And this can feel bad, but it also expands our freedom. God does not want us to waste our time on childish endeavors. God calls us to deeper meaning and union with each other and with our Creator. This cannot be done if we are distracted by endless striving for traditional successes. Since this is Church in the Wild, I will end with a reference to our natural world. Every year, I catch myself thinking that we really ought to do the holidays later in the season, maybe late February or early March, when the really difficult days of winter are wearing us down. Instead, we have a flurry of activity and then a long period of waiting and persevering through what from the outside appears to be a very lifeless period, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. In our external orientation to time and the environment, there are certain things that we know to be true. Even though the leaves are gone and the grass is covered by snow or usually mud, we know that the sun and warmth will return again. Yet as we navigate the dormant and lifeless seasons of our internal lives, we don't have the same comfortable luxury of knowing what's next. Being lost and lonely comes for all of us. If you find yourself in this place now or in the future, please know that you have not been abandoned or forgotten about. And you should be proud to have arrived at a place where you're ready to find more meaning and a deeper faith. And I would urge all of us to remember what Rilke wrote. Let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Zach. For our time of meditation, Valerie is going to lead us. And I had do you want me to share my screen just with a pretty image? Is that okay?
That would be lovely. Thank you.
Let's do that. So I will again take it
So
away,
for those who don't know me, I'm Valerie, and I invite you at this time to join me in a practice of meditation, which can mean many things, but I think all forms of meditation and many different traditions are about checking in with your body, mind, and heart. So at this time, make sure you've found a comfortable posture you can hold for the next few minutes. You can leave your eyes gently open, or you can close them. I want you to begin by scanning down through your body, starting at the top of the head, noticing your brow, your eyes, your jaw, your throat, your neck, your shoulders, your upper back, your chest, your belly, the position of your arms and hands, your seat, your upper legs, your knees, your lower legs, and your feet. Not trying to change anything, just checking in with your body in this present moment. At this time, I invite you to check in with your breath, not trying to change it, just trying to follow the path of the air from outside your body to your nose or lips, rushing into your throat, filling your chest, and sinking down into your belly. Then rising again past your heart and out through your nose and mouth again. See if you can follow just one breath from beginning to end. I now invite you to use the breath as an anchor for your awareness. Find the part of the breath that's easiest to rest your attention on. Count each breath up to 10, and when you reach 10, begin again at 1. You may notice thoughts or feelings or sensations in the body distract you from the breath, and that's normal. Just label it thinking or feeling, and then return your attention back to the breath again. You may continue to rest in this place of awareness, or if it feels right to you, I invite you to close your eyes and join me in a brief visualization. I invite you to imagine that your heart has two faces. One face looks toward the past, and the other face looks toward the future. I invite you to check in with your heart. The face that sees the past. What holds your heart's attention now? And now check in with the face of your heart that looks to the future. What does that face of your heart see now? And whenever you're ready, you may thank your heart for the visions it's shared with you today, and return your awareness to your body, to the sounds of the room around you. And when you're ready, I invite you to open your eyes.
Thank you so much, Valerie. We are so thankful for everything that we've been given, for this community and the new ways we have of connecting and being together. We have started just last month taking a moment during our time together to share what we are particularly grateful for today, this week. Feel free to share that in the chat. What are you feeling thankful for right now? And I am very thankful for Zach and Valerie and Kristen and Marcia, who all came together to make today possible and to help this first Zoom worship go off without a major hitch so far. And I am thankful that we're able to give such a great gift to Binghamton Food Rescue and Sky Lake. We had no idea at the beginning of the year when we said we want to give 10% of whatever we collect. It wasn't even actually the beginning of the year. I think it was mid-year. So the fact that we've raised over $10,000 and they each get 500 is amazing. Yeah, family, this community, the bluebirds, lovely. Books, love it. As we begin to close our time of worship, we also like to take the opportunity to set an intention for the week ahead. So again, feel free to share in the chat if there is a word or a phrase you want to use this week to guide you for the next 7 days. Whether it's something to do with the liminal space we're in, or something through our meditation or being out in nature that has inspired you that you want to focus on this week. We've found it helps to name it, even if it's just to yourself. You don't have to share, of course, but it's a helpful word or phrase that will come back to you through the week. Lots of great thankfulness and intentions. Yeah, what a great intention to remember when the next time you're feeling something big. It's not final. Always balance for us. I love it. Yeah. Well, thank you all. I hope as the words and phrases, that's mine too, Lisa, to get outside every day. And actually Cheryl inspired me. She set that as an intention for herself last year to do 15 minutes a day, as long as it wasn't like absolutely awful out. And she said she did it. So I'm gonna try the same. So I hope you live intentionally this week, no matter which intention you choose. I hope you choose how you live each day and each moment. And I'll invite you to receive or share in our blessing with it's a little harder to see my hands. I'll hold them up here so you can see. And I think we have a slide. Our traditional, for 6 months now, today was our 6-month anniversary of worship. So our 6-month traditional blessing. Deep peace of flowing air to you. Deep peace of running wave to you. Deep peace of quiet earth to you. Deep peace of the shining stars to you. Deep peace of the source of peace be with you all. So Kristen's going to sing us out. Feel free to stay for coffee talk after the song.
All right, it's time for our final song for worship today. If you have an instrument lying around that you like to play in the key of C preferably, or something to drum on, to shake, please join us. I'll put the chords, very, very simple chords, in with the lyrics. So here we go.